Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Doherty.
And I'm Karen Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Ladies. I'm Karen here with Kelly, and today we are going to be focused on the letter F for finding. So finding is a later part of our process here where we're talking about what now, what comes next. For some people, it may be looking for connection, talking about purpose, those sorts of things. So this is always a big one because there's so much that goes along with it. We're very excited to have Deb here with us. And Deb, before we officially say hello, I'm going to read your bio just so everybody can know a little bit about you. So Deb DeCelle is an intuitive medium, trauma-informed mentor, and best-selling author who helps individuals navigate grief, spiritual connection, and personal growth. Known for her compassionate approach, Deb blends professional experience with intuitive insight to support healing and meaningful transformation. So Deb, welcome. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And I was hoping maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about what you do, who you work with, and what that looks like.
So, I work as an intuitive educational medium. I'm on a mission to educate other people about their own gifts and their own connection. I work with people doing mediumistic readings, connecting with their loved ones in spirit. And I also do life path information, more of the intuitive psychic information. And I also mentor folks. So, teaching them to step more fully into their own intuitive gifts and also teach classes. So, really, education is at the heart of what I do, helping people to better understand themselves, to better understand their intuition, and at times to better understand their grief.
Okay, that's wonderful. It seems like that would be something that would be so helpful and really relevant to what we're talking about here today. So, would you say that mostly the people that you are working with are newer in the grief process or further along? Like, where do you find people on their path when they're coming to talk to you?
I get people all over the spectrum. Some people, it's brand new. They've had a loss within a few weeks or a few months, all the way to people that have lost loved ones many, many years ago. So it really kind of runs the spectrum. Not everybody is ready for a mediumistic reading so soon after a loss. And some people are longing for it and they really need it in that moment. So it really varies over time, the length of time that they've lost their loved ones in. As I said, it can kind of run the gamut from a very short amount of time to very long 20 years, 30 years, 40 years.
So I want to piggyback and jump back. We're going to go backwards a little bit because we also didn't mention that Deb is in the Grief Experience book with us. So she is a fellow, one of our co-authors of the Grief Experience Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection. And Deb and I met several years ago now at this point, and she was looking to be able to have some resources to give to her clients that she was seeing that maybe needed additional support after their reading with her. And so she reached out to me and we connected. I went to one of her classes on meditation, which Deb is amazing at meditations. And then I had an office space open at my office, and now Deb is in my office with me. So I see her quite often now. And but so grateful that she also signed on to do the grief experience with us and to be able to talk about her experience with grief and loss and what that looks like, and also add a tool. So would you mind sharing a little bit about your tool that is in the book? Because I think it would be
Absolutely.
great for our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the tool in the book is something called a PMR, a progressive muscle relaxation, followed by a meditation, taking you on a journey with your loved one. And so if you go to my website, debdecelle.com, and go to the Grief Experience tab, you'll find there a pre-recorded PMR with a meditation. And the one thing that I want to make people aware of is if you're not seeing your loved one when you're doing a meditation, you're not doing it wrong. Okay. Not everyone is a visual person. Not everybody can have a sensing and a knowing in a visual way. Perhaps it's just feeling closer to your loved one or thinking of memories of your loved one. So if you do go and use that free resource, I just want you to know that if it's not the way that you think it should be based on what others are telling you, you're not doing it wrong. Everybody works differently. So don't be hard on yourself and just keep working with it.
So, I'm so glad you brought up the meditation piece because I've always heard every medium I've heard says meditate, meditate, right? We all have this power. We can all tap into our intuitive side. So, why is meditation so important to be able to help us connect with our loved ones?
Meditation helps us to get quiet. It helps us to kind of block out all of the outside noise, if you will. And it gives us an opportunity to sit with ourselves, to sit with especially our grief. You're taking a time, you're taking a pause. That's really what meditation is it's taking a pause, even if it's only for a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes. It doesn't need to be something that's goes on and on and on, but in the stillness is where we receive. It's in that stillness where we can find profound connection in such an empowering way.
Yeah. And so, what about the people out there that are like, I can't quiet my mind? Because that's what I hear anytime I bring up meditation.
Well, monkey mind is a thing. I even struggle with monkey mind myself. And so find what works for you. Some people get, intuitive insights and downloads when they're out walking or when they're listening to music or when they're driving their car. It doesn't have to be, sitting, blissing out and saying Om over and over again. It doesn't have to be, sitting quietly and breathing. It can come when you're listening to music. Perhaps you hear a song that triggers a memory of a loved one. Know that your loved one is with you in that moment. It's one of the ways that they're saying hello. You have your wonderful Healing Strides program that helps people to overcome their grief. I just got chills through my whole body. Helps people to overcome grief in a way that's empowering. You're running, you're moving your body, you have a goal race in mind. So there's a lot of different ways to connect. And if you struggle with traditional meditation, I would encourage you to use a guided meditation. Because if you have monkey mind like I do, and you're here and here and here and here, it can really help to have a voice to focus on and to listen to so that it's a directed experience as opposed to just sitting quietly hoping that all of your human construct brain stuff is just going to go away. And by doing that, by exploring different avenues, it's really empowering you to find the way that you connect best with your loved ones and with your higher self.
Before we jump back into the episode, we want to share something that's really close to both of us. The Grief Experience, Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection, is not only a powerful book, it's actually how we met.
We were two of the 25 authors who came together to write this collection. Each chapter offers a personal story about grief, different relationships, different circumstances, different ways people try to make sense of life after someone they love died. Readers tell us these stories feel honest, compelling, and surprisingly reassuring. Many say it helped them feel less alone in what they're carrying.
What makes this book unique is that it doesn't stop at the story. Each chapter ends with a practical tool, something the reader can use right away. One reviewer said the suggestions at the end of the chapter became a lifeline when they weren't sure what to do next. If you're looking for grounded support, or you're a therapist wanting to understand better the reality of grief from many angles, this book offers connection, clarity, and real guidance, not cliches.
You can find The Grief Experience on Amazon, and we'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I always say, like, I get some of my best ideas when I sit down and meditate. So my monkey mind is going, but I still get really good benefits from meditation. And I also get great ideas. And our brain is doing what it's supposed to do. It is thinking, right? I recently did a meditation that I really liked. It was focused on like 4-6 breathing. So breathing into the count of 4 and out to 6, but it was using a bell. So the
Mm.
bell would last for 4 seconds. So to keep that focus in, and then the next bell would be for 6 to help with that. And that was really good for me to be able to keep that connection.
Yes, I love that. And it's interesting too because sound can really guide us. So it sounds like it wasn't a voice, but a bell, but you're still getting that remarkable benefit because when we exhale longer than we inhale, it takes us into that yummy parasympathetic nervous system where we can feel connected, where we can feel peace. And so that is amazing. What platform was that on, Kelly? Was that
Y-
Insight
y- y-
Timer or
YouTube.
YouTube? I love it. What a great
Yeah.
free resource. You gotta
Yeah,
love YouTube.
absolutely. Yep.
Gotta
Yep.
love it.
Absolutely. Yep. So I think one of the things that Karen and I hear the most probably in our groups is people talking about signs.
Mhm.
And so I would love for you to kind of talk about that, because I think a lot of people like doubt that their loved ones are coming through because they don't see the signs or they're not getting them as much as they want, or so
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody about that?
Yeah, well, signs are such a precious gift from the spirit world, and nothing is more disheartening if we're thinking we're not getting any. Okay. So receiving signs is just about being open to receiving them, being open and aware of your loved one being around you. And signs can go run the gamut from anywhere from, finding cardinal feathers, as one of my clients does. Okay. Or it can be, you know what? The song came on that we played at my dad's funeral, okay? And knowing it's a really about suspending any disbelief and being open to the belief that they are sending you spirit messages, that they are giving you signs. Sometimes it's a rainbow, sometimes it's happening upon something that they left behind with their signature on it. And the thing that I've learned over time is the more we can offer gratitude for signs, the more those signs come. So, one of the things that I recommend to people is keeping a little bit of a journal, or even we're on these wonderful little boxes all day long. Okay. So, going into the notes section of your phone and saying, you know what, heard a song today that made me think of dad, or saw a cardinal in my yard, I just know that was my mom, or a ray of sunshine came down and kissed the side of my face, I know that was my husband. All right. So really believing is one of the battles that we kind of face, instead of saying, oh no, that's just a coincidence, oh no, that's just something that happened. There are no coincidences with the spirit world, with our loved ones in spirit. It's really about them showing up and giving us consistent signs, or feeling their presence. Sometimes it's not an external sign. Sometimes it's a holy moly, I was just thinking of dad and I got a chill through my whole body. Or, you know what? Sat with my mom's picture or my child's picture today and I could feel them near me. It was like they were right here. And so really trusting in what you're getting is something that's so important. Not nitpicking it apart and saying, well, I need a signier sign, or I need more, and certainly we can ask for more signs from our loved ones in spirit. But the really important thing is that we're open to receiving them.
Yeah. It reminds me so much of a story. I had a man that I worked with that lost his mom,
Hmm.
and he really put all of the work into meditating, and was really committed to it, and was really consistent with it. And after some time, he was meditating, and in that moment, he felt like his mom came to him really clearly, felt her, heard her. It was just as if she was right there. And it was interesting talking to him about it after, because that was one of the main reasons why he was meditating. He was really trying to create some clear space for connection. But what's interesting is as soon as it happened, he thought, this is too good to be true. Then he
Um,
started to doubt it. And then he wasn't really sure, did that happen just because I was willing it to happen, because I wanted it to happen? I feel like the too good to be true part feels like a barrier for some
Mhm,
people when they are receiving
mhm.
signs. And I talk to people sometimes about the reality of a feeling and how that can't be denied. When that happens and there's that flutter or that feeling that something's different is happening here, you know. What do you feel like are some of the barriers for people, or how do you kind of help bridge some of that when people are struggling?
Well, I think some of the barriers is people think they're doing it wrong or they think their loved one isn't showing up. So, really, we are our own limitations. And
Mm.
so, if you can get really honest with yourself and really start to dig into things in a deeper way, you yourself are going to bridge that realm. I let people know there's not a person on this planet that can't connect with someone in the spirit world. It's just to what degree do you want to develop it? And so I love what you had said about your client feeling his mom being very present, because that's one of the things that meditation does is we're quiet enough to hear. And when we're quiet enough to hear, we can pick up on those subtle messages. We can connect in a way that's deeper, that's more profound. And so you have continuing bonds, continuity of relationship with your loved one in the spirit world. And so we can really limit ourselves in our humanness and say, oh, that was just my imagination, or oh, I'm just making that up because I miss them so much. When in reality, it's your loved one saying, hey, I love you, I'm still here, and making sure that you're not dismissing subtle cues is something that's really important, because it's in those small, quiet moments where continuity of relationship is born, where we're able to really dig into the relationship we had with them when they were here in the physical world and continue that on, realizing that they still have life. They're just not in the physical form that they were in when they were here with us on the earth plane.
So it sounds like you can almost be assisting people in a number of ways, because the meditation and the mediumship can go together, but I imagine they can also be separate too, you
Mhm,
know, in the way that meditation can sometimes, maybe have something to do with that or not. Talking a little bit more about the mediumship and the work that you do there,
mhm.
I'm assuming that would be more guided, more assisted, something that people would come to you for. It's interesting. I remember when I first started doing this work, Kelly and I say this all the time. We've been doing this just about, 25 years each. So, Kelly, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I felt like earlier on, people would almost kind of whisper to me, like, I'm going to a medium next week. Like, like it's kind of like, do you think that's crazy? Like, don't tell anybody kind of thing. And now I feel like such a high percentage of people that I work with also work with mediums. And some people are really just so sure that this is what they need to do and that this is going to be tremendously helpful. And then some people are still, maybe not as sure, but it's so much more common now. I think so much more accepted. So what does your work look like when you're really in the mediumship role with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, people come to me in all different degrees of their grief, all different stages of grief. And so we know there are no stages of grief, all right? So, let's take that right off the table.
You knew
But they
Kelly was going to say something if you didn't.
I was biting my tongue.
I know. The minute it came out of my mouth, I'm like, "Oh no, that's not real." So they come to me in different places. As I had mentioned earlier, some people it's a brand new loss, some people it might be 20, 30 years prior. So when I'm meeting with people, when people are coming to me for mediumship, okay, the mediumship that I do is about deep healing. And it's about sitting with someone and being able to bring through their loved ones with what we call in the mediumistic world evidence. So, evidence that I have their loved one, specific details of their loved one, really meeting them where they're at, having plenty of tissues, but also letting people know how truly loved they are. And the other thing, too, that it can be really profoundly healing is number one, people hearing that their loved one is healed and whole. Okay.
Mm.
Another is maybe you had a complex relationship with the loved one in spirit. And oftentimes when it's been a really challenging relationship, when I'm working as a medium, their loved one will come through and their head will be hung just slightly, just enough, so that I know that there's regret in the way that they communicated here in the physical world. And so sometimes the words "I'm sorry" bubble up in the in that process. Okay. And the other thing too that I think is so important in mediumship is that not only are you grief informed, but that you're trauma informed, so that you're not saying things that are going to traumatize your clients. You're not saying things that are going to be upsetting and not allow them to be empowered and to move forward. So, I really meet people where they're at, and that's one of the greatest joys, is being able to be a conduit for the spirit world, because I'm just the cell phone. I just have to be quiet enough to hear what the spirit world is communicating with me, so that I can then pass that along to my sitter. And the information that comes through boggles my mind. I have no idea how this works. I just know that it does. And the healing that has happened in my office and on Zoom, and in group readings even, is really something that is so incredible to me. I'm always amazed by it, and I always stand in awe. And it's truly a beautiful responsibility to have developed my abilities to where they are today, so that I can really help lead and guide other people on their grief journey. And that's why I had reached out to Kelly all those years ago, because I realized the responsibility that I was carrying for my sitters, for my clients. And I knew I'm not trained as a therapist. I'm grief informed and trauma informed, but I'm not a therapist. And so I wanted resources for the people coming to me, oftentimes feeling so broken, and wanting them to have really high end resources that empowered them to take next steps. And so, certainly coming for a mediumship reading is very healing, but what's on the other side of that? What's the follow up with that? What else are you doing to move through your grief? Because it's not just one thing and then, oh, I'm done. We're good. I had a great reading. I'm healed. I'm fine. As Kelly always teaches, we learn to live with our grief. It's not ever going to go away. And so, being able to give clients resources, to women like you, Karen, and you, Kelly, is something that's really important to me and one of the hallmarks of my work.
Yeah, and I think it's so important, and I'm so glad you brought up the trauma informed piece because unfortunately I've had clients that have gone to mediums and has not been a positive experience. The medium has shared details of the death that were quite traumatizing to my clients. And they did more harm than good.
Mhm.
And so I do think it's about finding the right person to go to have this, a reading with. But I also I'm curious because I've heard this and I want to be able to, not everybody does have a happy, healthy relationship with somebody who's died, right?
Yeah.
It can be quite complicated because relationships are complicated as a whole. But what I have found with some of my clients that have maybe had more difficult relationships, they weren't as close as they wish they had, maybe there was addiction involved. I've heard that you can have a different relationship with them now in spirit.
You absolutely can.
And so
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that and why that is? And
I will. I will. I will. And that's something really that's true in my own life. So I'll use myself as an example if that's okay. My dad passed in 2017. It was relatively sudden. He hung on for about 2 weeks and he was gone. And my relationship with my dad was not always sunshine and roses. There was a lot of complex emotions. There was a lot of water under the bridge, as he would say. And it was really hard. And for me, when he passed, I really feel like I was grieving not only the loss, but also the relationship that I always wanted that I didn't have with him.
yeah.
Okay. So I was never daddy's little girl. That's just not the way we were raised. It's not who he was. Okay. And my dad all of a sudden started showing up to me and putting opportunities in place for me to begin to do this work professionally, and started, I had all these signs and synchronicities and things coming together, because when people transition to spirit, they learn 360-degree perspective. So they can see things from everybody else's perspective. Now, our human minds can be very limited. So you only may get someone that is a tough cookie and is only going to see it their way, and it's their way or the highway. Okay. But when we transition to the spirit world, we have this awareness, this overwhelming knowingness, and we're able to see things from the perspective of others. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, people can come through and take ownership for being a complicated person when they were here in what we call the 3D. Okay. And so it really opens opportunity for healing. I'm closer to my dad now in spirit than I ever was when he was here in the physical world, because those complicated human 3D emotions are no longer getting in the way, because he's come through and said, you know what, Deb, I was wrong. All right. And so there's a feeling of being able to connect with them in a way that's so much more pure, in a way that is so much less confusing as it was when they were here in the physical world. And the other thing, too, that I think it's important to mention is, although they have that 360-degree perspective, although they may be very different in spirit, sometimes it's too little too late. The person that's left behind is not willing to develop relationship with them in the spirit world because things are too far gone. And that's okay too. But when they're in my office and they're hearing I'm sorry, even if it's the only thing that they take away, that's something that's so important and so deeply healing, Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, I've heard so many of my clients say, that they have a better relationship with them in spirit and how grateful they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's probably the understanding of this that could open up the idea for people of what they could hope to gain. I think sometimes it feels like it's just about asking and answering questions and that sort of thing, but it is about connection. And I think that's a really important part of this. And maybe going back to the meditation too, finding quiet moments. I think in the work that Kelly and I do, we're really trying to help people progress forward through the grieving process, because as we always say, that's where time is taking you anyway, and it's not about leaving our loved one behind. So Deb, it sounds like your work is very much focused about having a present relationship with a person who has gone. So it through the mediumship, through the meditation, are there other parts of your work that help a person do that as well?
Absolutely. I do mentoring, one-to-one mentoring with people. And throughout the course of mentoring, that's really custom tailored to the individual. And many people, I'm teaching them to connect with the spirit world more deeply so that they can have quality of relationship with their loved ones, so that they can learn to be certain of the signs and synchronicities. And so they can really create that continuing bond, that continuity of relationship. And, your F is finding. And so finding a new way forward from the loss, finding a new way to communicate and to connect with your loved ones is something that's so important. So, yes, it's really about the bonds that can never be broken.
And you do a lot of classes too at
I
our
do.
office, and online as well to help people develop their intuitive abilities and, you know,
Absolutely. And it's such a joy. One of the things that I love most is teaching. I was in the field of education and working with at-risk youth for 15 years. And so it's my mission truly to work myself out of a job. I want people to be able to connect with their loved ones in a way that's meaningful, and also learn to play with other fun spiritual tools. Right now, I'm in the midst of co teaching a class about soul led tarot. And, I've taught other classes about, mindfulness and meditation. I've taught classes about psychic mediumship. Right now, I'm doing a development circle for people to be able to hone their skills and their gifts, not necessarily because they want to do this professionally, family, but they want to be dialed in more into their own superpowers, their own spidey senses, if you will, because we've all got them.
If you've connected with our grief framework on the podcast, you'll find even more support inside our private, free Facebook community. Each week, we'll walk through grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding with prompts and practical tools you can use right away. It's a place to connect with others who are on their own trail through grief. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook and join us. And so we're getting close to where we're going to talk about Celebrate Their Life, but I do want to share an experience that I had with Deb for our listeners. So after my dad died, I was in the office a couple of days after, and the night before my dad died, he and I had many conversations. He was very lucid that night. I'm very grateful for that time that we had together, and he was very fixated on being able to speak to his best friend. His best friend had died several years prior to that. And they had been best friends since they were 12 years old. So my dad died at 90, so a long time. And when I was in the office and Dad said, your dad came to me and she's like, he's with your mom. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like, still, I'm always skeptical. Even though I so believe in all this, I still have a skeptical side to me. I will be honest. And I said, well, is there anyone else? Because I was curious, like Deb would have no idea about my Uncle Lenny. Like, she wouldn't have known anything about him. She's like, yeah, there's this man here. He's really funny. He's giving your dad a hard time. Well, we called my Uncle Lenny Uncle Looney because he was a character. He showed up one time when we were little with a fake eyeball in his belly button. Like he would bust on my dad. Like that's just the way their relationship was. And Deb explained my Uncle Lenny perfectly to me. And so knowing that they were together was so like, it meant so much to me, and I was so grateful for that. Like, I was like, okay, great, he's with my mom. But like to know that, like, because of how fixated he was on that the night before he died, like he's back with him. And that's what I know he would have wanted. So thank you, Deb, for that.
You're so
That's really
welcome.
neat.
You're so welcome.
So we always talk about Celebrate Their Life. And
Mhm.
talking about how can we remember our loved ones, remember the memories, the connection we shared, rather than focusing on the death and the ending and the loss.
Mhm.
So what are ways that you celebrate your mom and dad's life?
Well, at least once a year, I will have a meal. Usually it's on her birthday or the anniversary of her passing, having a meal on her china that I have. So that's one of the ways that I honor my mom. And every year there's an event here that's local, which has all antique engines and things like that. And it's 2 weekends in June. My family is always there for both of those. And I always really I talk to my dad and I know that he's with us smiling down on my kids and on our family. And so really one of the ways that we honor dad is to go and to participate in the event. It's called the Gas Up, to participate there. And with my mom, also, I honor her by listening to the nudges when it comes to shopping. Um, I celebrate my mom when I find a deal because let me tell you, from the moment she passed, she sent me in the right direction to get suits for my kids for the funeral. She pointed me in the right direction. Even now, if she says go to Kohl's, I'm going to Kohl's, even if there's nothing specific I'm looking for. So I really honor them in those small moments, and also really just carry them in my heart. Always, saying, hey, mom, I know that was you. Or, oh, that song from dad's funeral came on the radio. Dad, I know that's you. And so honoring them in all of those small, unique ways slowly builds up over time. And it can really lead to, what we've talked about today, which is continuing those bonds, which is so incredibly important for growth and for healing. And frankly, it's fun. It's fun when I can feel my dad at the Gas Up. It's fun when I sit and eat off of my grandmother's china that was my mom's, that she always had in the china closet at our house, or getting the most wonderful deal on something, is just, oh, it's a wonderful way to know that they're still with me and to let them know, hey, I know that was you.
I love that. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that, Deb.
Thank you.
Well, and I think it's exactly why Kelly likes this to be a focus through the work is the celebrating their life because it's understandable. And I think our tendency, especially in the earlier parts of our grieving process, to just be so focused on the loss, to be focused on the pain and the absence and all of the things it feels like they're missing and we're missing. And that can really preoccupy us to the point that it feels like every time we think about them, it's with pain and
Yes.
and thinking about it in a way that hurts. So I think that's why we're always hoping to be able to get to that next place where we can be grieving with the love and not, with so much pain. And it sounds like everything you're doing, Deb, is surrounding that thought and that idea both in your work and personally. So it's a good example and also to remind everybody that it's possible. Because as we said, we don't want to feel like we're doing this and hey, I'm feeling better and it's because I've left the memories behind. No, they're right here with us and we're trying to bring them forward too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, typically we like to leave everybody who's listening with an idea, a thought, an action plan, something that is going to help them today,
Mhm.
right now, to do this, to get this connection. You had mentioned a couple of things throughout our time. Is there any one thing that you think is especially helpful that a person could try?
I think acknowledging the signs when they come through, whether it's a song or a butterfly or a cardinal or a feather or just knowing like, wow, I feel like my dad was right here, acknowledging because the more we acknowledge and the more we offer gratitude, the more our loved ones get excited about it too. They get excited about sending signs or hey, look at what I did. Those kinds of things. So acknowledging and offering gratitude for what's coming through really is the foundation for continuing relationship with our loved ones. So
Yeah.
jotting it down in a journal or typing it into your phone or telling a friend, "Hey, guess what happened to me today?" Bringing life to these signs and symbols is something that's so empowering. And just saying, "Yes, more of that, please," because that it opens the floodgates for the spirit world to say, "Oh, she liked that. She's going to love this. Watch this." So it's kind of the quintessential hold my beer from the spirit world.
Well, and I think the openness is what we often try to encourage people. And just real quick, because I have to ask, because it's on my mind, I am thinking of the people who are listening who haven't experienced a sign, because
Mhm,
ultimately, in a group setting, we'll have people talking about this, and you can always see the person that's kind of
mhm,
pulling back and feeling bad because maybe it feels like my loved one's not reaching out to me or there's something wrong. Like, is
mhm.
there anything that could help that person? Um, or something that they could understand about what that could mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes connection is as simple as sitting in meditation or sitting and looking at a photo of their loved one and allowing themselves to feel the close connection. Because you're right, not everybody is getting tons and tons of signs. Or some people get a bunch of signs and then all of a sudden they're not getting any signs and they're like, what's happening? And it
Right.
can be really startling. Well, they have things that they're doing over there too. So they get busy and they're doing things and things like that. But for people that aren't getting the signs or feel left out from not having signs, I would really encourage you to sit in meditation, to take that pause, to breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 6, and just bring their loved one to their mind and allow themselves to feel. Because their loved one may not be into sending a whole bunch of signs. Their loved one may just want quiet contemplation to spend with them. And as I said, meditation isn't necessarily for everybody, okay? But it's another way for us to connect and to feel them close. So even just having conscious awareness of imagining them being with you, okay? Imagination and intuition are very closely linked. And taking everything as it comes and allowing yourself to sit in the stillness to feel your loved one near.
Yeah.
Can I jump in? Because I also think that we have to be open to them. We have to look for them sometimes. Sometimes they're right in our face and we don't see them. Sometimes it's just that memory that pops into your head out of nowhere.
Mhm.
That could be a sign as well. And I think everybody thinks of these certain ways, right? Sometimes it's the clock, every 444 showing up every day,
Hmm.
right? There's been so many things with, my grief retreats that I've done with April Hanna. 444 has been like across the board, like crazy. I remember I was sitting at the retreat doing an after death communication session, and I look out the window and there's the number 444. I'm like, are you kidding me again? So, like, you have to stay open to them and sometimes even ask for them, I think. Sometimes ask. I've heard people say, and I don't know, Deb, if there's any truth to this, write a note and put it under your pillow, like that you want them to come in your dream or you want a specific sign. I don't know. People have told me
I
it
love
works.
that. I love that idea. I love that idea. And whatever brings close connection is the thing to do. So I never have personally tried that or experienced it, but that's a new one for me. And now I'm really excited about it because I'm going to try it. Um, but I think that, yes, being open to all of the ways that signs and synchronicities can come through. Another great example, my dad comes through in license plates all the time. I'll
Yeah.
see his initials. KHS. And I know it's him. I know it's his way of saying, hi, I'm here, pay attention. All right. So even something as simple and basic as you said, Kelly, like a time on a clock or numbers on a license plate or initials on a license plate, signs can be everywhere. And there's no set, okay, yep, it's got to be a bird feather or it has to be a cardinal or it must be a hawk. Okay. There's no set types of signs. Signs can be anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and I think a really great takeaway, because the first time I've heard this, is the gratitude for the sign,
Yes.
which is a really, really great suggestion and makes it sort of interactive, I guess, in terms of like it, especially feeling connected. So lots of good information here, Deb. So thank you so much. I mean, clearly I think Kelly and I could go on with this stuff because you do hear a lot of this. And I'll be honest, I don't have a specific, belief system. And it's not like I went into this work very sure of anything.
Mhm.
But I think in the time that I've done it, what I'll always say is that there's something. You just hear too much of this from too many people from too many different walks of life with their own different belief systems, that are sharing these kinds of stories. So it's one of the parts of the work that I especially like, to be honest. So, Deb, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing, how could they do that?
They can go right to my website. It's debdecelle.com, and they can find me on Facebook and Instagram on at Deb DeCelle Medium. It's all lowercase, all one word.
Oh, it's great.
Well, it was great. Thank you so much, Deb, for being for coming on, for all that you're doing to help grieving individuals. And, I hope people check you out. And we're just so grateful to have you. Thanks, Deb. Thanks for joining us on The Grief Ladies.
Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work.
If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.